Hello, everyone. My name is Danica Joan, and welcome to Custody Matters, Monday night edition. So today I was discussing with one of my co-parenting instructors about, she said, she deals with every single day the connection between child support and timeshare. And it's very frustrating for her because the thing is being child support is such an emotional kind, or should I say, having a child is such there's an emotional hook to that. And every aspect of a child's well-being all seems to just sort of like blend together and one thing affects the other. Does one thing affect the other? Absolutely, absolutely. However, does child support have anything to do with time sharing? So if a parent is obligated to pay child support, should their right to have their entitled time have anything to do with them being paid up on their child support? So for a lot of parents who really, really depend on the child support, it's an emotional thing. It's the fact that, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to pay my electric bill because I really counted on this income to supplement our lifestyle. Child support is something that's very important, and if you're required to pay it, definitely, do everything you can in your power to pay it, or if it's been unequally distributed, then do something about it. But don't just withhold, because a lot of times, there's two sides to every story. So sometimes people will withhold child support because the other parent is withholding time sharing. I always compare it. I said, comparing child support, your obligation to pay child support, and your obligation to spend time with your child, if you connect the two, it's like connecting apples and blue. Apples and blue have nothing to do with each other, and neither do child support and time sharing. So sometimes what I have my parents do is to shift things into a different context. So for instance, if you were the primary person, you had the most time sharing with your child, and maybe the other parent was out of the picture, and yet you had a friend or a relative or whatever that would say, you know what, I am willing to take on taking care of that child every other weekend and maybe a night a week. So, as the primary person who is burdened with the heaviest responsibility of taking care of the day-to-day well-being of the child, I think we would look at that person that's a very generous offer to help take a break off the burden of taking care of my child. So we see that as a positive contribution if it were anybody but the other parent. And yet we use it sometimes, because we're emotionally hooked, we use it as a leverage to say, you know what, as much as I need a break from our child, I am not going to let you have anything because you haven't paid to earn the right to. It really does not, it doesn't connect, and yet we connect it all the time. And a lot of it is because of the leverage that it places when we have the lion's share of the time, the control over the child's time, and we're not getting the child support that we desperately need. We connect the two, like one has anything to do with the other. And yet I've talked to many parents who their other parent just really, really struggles to pay for the child support, has not been able to make ends meet. They're financially irresponsible. Who knows? Maybe it's due to their own fault. Maybe it's due to the fact that they got laid off. it's irrelevant. The fact is maybe that parent might be a really good contribution of time with the child that gives you a break, but also really makes a difference in that child's life, such that that child has built an enriched relationship with the other parent. That's got to be worth something. And it's child support is child support. Definitely have to pay it, but it is a financial thing. The other side of the coin is the emotional emotional contribution. So there's the financial contribution and there's the emotional contribution. And it's not fair to, if you're being withheld the financial contribution, that you should reject the emotional contribution. Because really it's the child's right, not the parent's right to have visitation with their child. It really is the child's right to have that time with the other parent if the other parent is willing and able to be an emotional contribution to that child's life. And if we are withholding it, using the lack of child support as a leverage, then we're the ones that really needs to reevaluate why we're doing what we're doing. Because I promise you, down the road, when you're not so emotionally hooked by all of this custody battle stuff, you're going to sit back and say, wow, maybe I shouldn't have done this, or maybe I should have done things a little differently and stuff like that. So that's really about what I wanted to talk about today. And I know it really can be a sore spot for some parents, especially parents who are really, really desperately struggling. They're on public assistance because the other parent is not a financial contribution. And what really sucks is when they're not just not a financial contribution, but they're also not an emotional contribution either. And I feel for you when you don't have either. But to reject one because you're not getting the other it's not a good thing. So if you have any questions or comments on this, I'd love to hear from you. If you have private message me and we can talk about it further. Have a good evening.